Hi photo students, this is an introduction to your Long 4 assignment titled Document a Stranger, Create a Stranger. And what we're going to do in this assignment, pay attention to your due dates. Just because the due dates are shown here in the video, they don't always correspond semester by semester with what is in our Google Classroom, so just pay close attention. We're going to have this assignment in two parts. This is going to be your first part, which is creating a description of your idea for the project. And I want you to outline a few things here. I want you to outline the method by which you are going to create this project or take these photographs, the technique or techniques, and the questions you want to answer through the work. All right, and part two is going to be the shooting and editing of these images. I'm going to note here that I think the more you shoot, the better. It allows you to edit and eliminate certain images, but the more images you have to work with in order to create a series, the better. Now, we're shooting in RAW format at this point. We started in Long 3 shooting RAW, and we're going to continue shooting RAW, and I'm going to reiterate some of those demos in Google Classroom for you. So make sure your camera's set to RAW and you're looking at how to process RAW images through our workflow documents and videos. Now, these are just some suggestions. We do have I have some flexibility here, and I'm interested in you having your own take on these assignments. So just keep in mind that I'm using these as or I'm introducing this section as a kind of guide as to what you might do, but I'm open to other ideas. So you'll create a portrait of a person using strategies of both documentary and fiction. Combine elements of unrehearsed, intuitive shooting with planned, constructed or directorial image making. So when I say that, that's kind of a spectrum I'm using, where you go out and it's unrehearsed, you're just trying to capture images in the world. Intuitive shooting, that's planned to a degree, you know what you're going to go seek and find. Where they're completely constructed images, so you're fabricating or creating the image and documenting that, or a completely directorial image making, so everything from start to finish is really highly constructed. Now, things that you might be interested in answering: who's this person, what do they look like, what do they do, where do they live, why are they interesting. What you're going to turn in is you're going to shoot a minimum of 150 images per my suggestion. You're going to select a minimum of 7 to 10 of those images to create a compelling portrait of this person. Text can be employed as part of this presentation or your part as your presentation, but the images should carry most of the narrative weight. Okay. Now, some examples I'm going to go through here that I think are great for helping us understand some of these questions, especially like what's a method, technique, and questions. This is a series of works by Richard Rinaldi called Touching Strangers. What's really nice, you can go to his website and you can go to a nice video documenting his process. What you're seeing here is Richard Rinaldi going out on the street and looking and seeking people to take portraits of who are complete strangers. And he enlists them, asks them if they're interested in posing for a portrait, and he directs them to, in this sense, touch in a specific way that often is kind of intimate or seeking to portray intimacy. Now, he calls it Touching Strangers, and when you watch this video, you'll see that he's got a process. He's got a large format camera, he's in dialogue and conversation with these people, and then he poses them and asks them to stand in particular ways. And I think this is a really good example of a very directorial approach. And he talks about what he's seeking and the kind of questions he's seeking to answer, and a lot of that has to do with this idea of intimacy and its relationship to relational situations with strangers. Now, This is a series, these are actually 1, 2, and 3 different projects by the French artist Sophie Calle. Here's a link to some more of this, but this series here is a document of a series of images she took of a person that she met once at a exhibit opening of her work, had a conversation with him, and found out from him in that conversation that he was going to be taking a trip from Paris to Italy, and she decided to follow him without his knowledge. And this ending image here is where he notices her and confronts her. This is a series of images where the artist got a job as a hotel maid and went into people's hotel rooms to clean up, but documented what she saw first before cleaning up, and then wrote a narrative about this. So you can see here's a frame that has an image, and then another frame that has a series, a gridded image series. This right here is a series of 4 images where she hired her mother to hire a private investigator to, at an undisclosed time, follow her. So these are images taken of her coming and going from certain spaces. Now, this isn't the exact series. This is taken from a kind of knockoff of that, but I had a really hard time finding the exact series. So, but these relate. And a lot of this is kind of interrogating how we read photographs. So when an image is composed in a specific way and is taken from a certain perspective at a certain distance with a certain type of lens, in black and white possibly, they all kind of read formally as someone spying or investigating someone. And so it's a way of really showing and demonstrating how images are read. Okay. Now, this is called Dear Stranger by a Japanese artist, Yoko Mizo, and this is a series of photographs where she would place a note in strangers' mailboxes, and it would read, "Dear stranger, I'm an artist working on a photographic project which involves people I do not know. I would like to take a photograph of you standing in your front room from the street in the evening. A camera will be set aside or outside the window on the street. If you do not mind being photographed, please stand in the room and look into the camera through the window for 10 minutes on this date and time. And I will take your picture and then leave. We will remain strangers to each other. If you do not want to get involved, please simply draw your curtains to show your refusal. I really hope to see you from your window." And if you look at the series, there's a really nice book published of this. You get a gamut of images of people either posing, the blind shut, or empty spaces where people had forgotten or didn't want to participate and just ignored the letter, or ones where they had forgotten and they were kind of moving around their space. Now, this is more traditionally photojournalism. This is Eugene Smith, who was one of the original Magnum photographers for Life magazine, and this is called Country Doctor. This is a series of images of what it sounds like. It's very specific, and they're images that go along with an editorial. He was very famous for getting lost on some of these projects, insofar as he would just disappear and not report back to Life magazine for weeks on end. And supposedly his process was, the legend is that he wouldn't load film for the first couple weeks or so as a way of desensitizing the subject to his presence. So that sound of the clicking of the camera would become so happenstance to him being there that people would forget he was there. And he felt he would get more genuine images if they didn't notice he was there anymore. So it would take him quite a while, and then he would, show up with all these pretty phenomenal images. This is Walker Evans from that top image. This is called The Passengers, Hidden Camera on the New York Subway. And it's what it sounds like. Walker Evans would go on the New York subway and with a hidden camera photograph, let me return there, photograph passengers without them knowing it. This is very similar and something that there's an article here called "You'd Be Arrested If You Tried to Take These on Airplane Photos Today." These are really wonderful and beautiful images. This photographer, Shabel's images of airplane windows, and so you get these really beautiful profiles and portraits of people kind of with a frame within a frame of total strangers. Now this one is called Peter Funk's I forget the series of it, but he essentially, his process, right, his method of working was to stand outside a Grand Central Station in New York for nearly a decade and photograph on a daily basis commuters. So every day he would go out front and photograph these, and these are different days, same people. Okay, so he's seeing these repetition or these habitual habits people have. So it's walking and spitting, having the same drink, wearing the same type of shirt, making the same expression, and so on. This is really wonderful. If you link to this, you'll see some really good images in that series. This is along a similar line. These are along the idea of, the term sheeple, where people wear or often found wearing the same kind of trendy thing. This would be an hour-long photograph on a certain day on a corner in a shopping area, commerce area, and you would find all these people wearing the same, I hate the term man purse, but that's, I think, what he was calling them. So there's a link to more of those if you want as well. Now, a couple student examples that I think are pretty great. This is a art student, Sergio Stryker, who's former student. What he did is he went to the bean sculpture in Millennium Park, which is also called Cloudgate by that's the actual formal name of the work, by Anish Kapoor. And he would go down there, he went down there, I think, for an entire day, and then he would walk around the sculpture, and then he went to Instagram and looked up the hashtag Millennium Park or the Bean and found himself. So this is him in the background of these images, okay? Now, this is another former artist who was a Korean artist and student of mine who I think did a really wonderful play on words. He had a real attention to language, specifically because English isn't his first language. And he saw stranger and he rearranged it to say Ranger Street. And then he found the nearest Ranger Street to Harper College and drove there and photographed Ranger Street, okay, which I think is pretty phenomenal way of approaching it conceptually, this project. This is him as well, asking tourists if he can have a photo taken with them. So he would walk around and meet strangers and have his portrait taken with these strangers. All right, I hope that makes some sense for this project. Obviously, ask any questions if you got any, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do.